A few months ago, we see all these images on social media and what's going on. We see all the negative perceptions of what people see of police officers, and these negative depictions of what we see all the time. And I started saying to myself, yeah, I've had issues, and I've issues with police officers, and I'm a teacher as well, and I've seen bad teachers, bad educators. And then I said to myself, geez, I started reading the paper, and this was a few days ago. It's about a priest. And I said, geez, there are bad people in the clergy as well, bad politicians. But for some reason, we always tend to put people in boxes, and instead of looking at the individual, who they really are. So I wanted to put a spotlight on some incredible police officers who I have a lot of respect for, who are creating change within our community here in Eastern Connecticut. And they're doing extraordinary work. They work with our students, they work with our young people, they work in the community, and they're creating change within our community. And I wanted to put a major spotlight on them, and because of the fact that we need to recognize some of the positive energy that we see within our community as well. And so the way this is going to go tonight, Officer Michael Lewis, he wrote an extraordinary piece about his experience. And he's a New London police officer. And Lindsay Thompson is going to read it. And we're just going to hear what Michael Lewis had to say, because he couldn't be here. He's on vacation right now. So please give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. How Officer Lewis became a police officer. Everything in our lives starts with a dream. Usually when we are children, we see images or people in real life that inspire us to dream and gain the ambitions we have to do some grand thing. Mine started at the age of 3. I was inspired by the commercials for the U.S. Marines and was an avid viewer of the show Cops. Therein began the dream to do both. Let's fast forward to my high school graduation. I graduated from Grasso Tech in June of 2003 and found myself standing on the infamous yellow footprints in Parris Island Marine Corps Recruit Depot in South Carolina. I served in an infantry battalion for 3 years out of my 4-year term, 2 deployments to Iraq in 2004 and again in 2005. After being near fatally wounded by a car bomb in 2005, I realized that someone had a higher purpose for me in life. I spent nearly a month and a half in a hospital and twice as long in rehabilitation, learning how to walk again. These events would lead me to understand one of the key traits to serving, whether it be serving one's country or city or town as a police officer, the trait of being humble. Once rehabilitated, I was rotated back to my unit at Camp Lejeune and decided that if I was to fulfill my purpose of serving, that I would need to begin by taking the necessary steps to rotate out of military life and prepare to become a civilian again at some point. I was given the option to transfer to the military police as I did not have the time left on my contract to complete a 3rd deployment. While in the military police, I received my final promotion to corporal. I served with many skilled professionals in the law enforcement community, from SWAT officers to canine and accident reconstruction units. While there, I patrolled the base measuring around 500 square miles in property and home to some 20,000 plus U.S. Marines and their families. Before we fast forward again to now, let's revert back to the humble trait. It took me almost 10 years after departing the Marines to finally achieve my dream of being a police officer. Many trials and hard lessons that all younger people would experience, all while doing my best to stay humble about what has happened in my own life personally and professionally. Never letting go of a dream and losing sight of a true desire is what keeps us all striving towards our life's purpose. I began my police career with the Department of Veterans Affairs Police Service. Now, ironically enough, the mission is to protect those who served, along with providing safety and security to those that are also employed nationally for the VA. While there, I had the opportunity to work with individuals that not only served in the branch of our armed forces, but some that also retired from local police agencies in the state. I learned the basics of police work and also learned that if I was going to thrive in that type of work, that I would need to become proficient in a human's very basic need of communication. The military is very different from the traits of a private citizen. It not only expects but also displays. Knowing how to talk to people will always take you further in life than taking what you desire when it's not your time to have it. Still wanting to grow as a person and as a police officer, I applied for the New London Police Department. After fulfilling all of the requirements, I was sworn in on March 2016. Now, before we cover the final portion, let's fill in some of the gaps in my timeline so that you can understand how one person, by a series of choices, can lead to influence the lives of not only our youth, but also society's image of what a police officer is and should be. During all of these adventures in my life, I still found the time to become a volunteer instructor with the Three Rivers Young Marines and have been doing so for almost 10 years. I also served the town of Montville as a volunteer fire lieutenant for almost 7. Back to the topic of today. In just over 2 years with the New London Police, I have served as a school resource officer and worked with many brilliant minds that hold the keys to the minds and hearts of our city's youth. In one school year, I grew in ways I never expected to mentally as a police officer. Learning to be at the level of a 13 or 14-year-old is more challenging than facing adults on the streets. I learned that the majority did not need another person to tell them what to do or how to do it. Staying humble allowed me to learn from them, their lingo, how they interact with each other, and what is important to them. Choosing to recognize difficulty, not as a police officer, but as a mentor and a friend, is what I believed allowed me to inspire many of the kids I worked with to set their own goals and find some positivity in what they do in their everyday lives. To this very day, I am approached by kids in the city saying, "Hey, Officer Lewis, we miss you," or "Can you come back to the school?" I'm certain if one day I have decided to be a police officer instead of a mentor, I would not get those types of comments. My final note, which rings true to my nature and in my career, we are not all the same. When a police officer commits a wrong act, it strikes a reset button for officers nationwide. We have to start again from scratch and earn the trust of people we encounter every day. Images are everything, and what is shown is not always how truly everyone is. I will always believe that our purpose as people on this earth is to share whatever gifts or traits we have with others, and through inspiration, they will do the same with you. As a police officer, we are faced with tough situations day in and day out, and consciously, we have to be the change we want to see. In great power comes great responsibility, and having the choice to arrest a problem rather than figuring out what the real issue will only perpetuate the cycle of people losing faith in their police. To those that are hearing this, I say this: if you are a police officer, a teacher, or anyone that serves the community in some capacity or another, remember that adults don't always have the ability to decide what's right course or what the path is. Adults have the most biased view due to the well-known science of being alive longer than a kid. So I challenge you to inspire your youth, spend time with them, and learn who they are. One of the greatest things we did in my department was accept the students' challenge not only to a basketball game, but to a dodgeball game as well. Our children can move leaps and bounds in older generations a lot quicker than we think, just by third-party compliments alone. It is always a heartwarming experience when a parent comes to me or requests to speak to me, and only me, because a child has planted the "not all are the same" seed and vouched for me without my knowledge. Thank you and God bless. And remember having the most impact and influence on others when we decide to not all be the same. Thank you.
Awesome. Officer Michael Lewis. He said, we are now all what? The same. There are approximately 7.5 billion people on this planet. None of us have the same fingerprints. It has scientifically been proven, which means we are all uniquely designed. But for some reason, what we do as human beings, when we see a situation that occurs on media, on television, we put people in a what? A box. And we identify them and we create generalizations of who people are in their career fields or whatever it may be. Or you're black, so you're like this. Or you're white, so you're like this. Or you're a teacher, so you must be this way. And we put people in boxes. And that's the reason why I felt it was very imperative for us to have a forum such as this. Now, there's a method to my madness. Why did I pick 2 black gentlemen, 2 white police officers? Yes, these are extraordinary individuals, but because also the spotlight is also always on white police officers and black men as well who are being targeted in our communities, right? So I also want to show within our communities the dialogue that we can have within our community, within Eastern Connecticut, which is extremely important, because that's what we're all about out here. So the first two individuals I'm going to bring up they're both from New London. Dave Richardson, who's a community member. He's a retired teacher from New London Public Schools, and he's also a very active member in our community. Please give a round of applause for Dave Richardson. The second individual I'm going to bring up is Officer Benway, who's a New London police officer. He's also what I would consider a peace officer within the high school, at New London High School. He does an extraordinary job at the high school. He creates relationships within the high school, and he's also part of the Juvenile Review Board, and he's an active member in the New London community as well. Give a round of applause for Officer Benway.
So as he says, my name is Officer Benway. Currently, right now, I'm positioned as a school resource officer at the high school in New London. How I got to that position, went to college, took a couple classes in criminal justice. So it was an interest of mine. As I was taking those classes, I was also looking to major in business. Went to Eastern and continued my work towards a business degree. Well, this was right around 2009 when everything collapsed as far as the economy. And I always had an interest in working with kids. So went back to school, got a master's degree in education. Worked in the education field for a little bit, a couple of long-term sub-positions, and another position in Norwich working with second and third grade students. Then a friend of mine who is here at Groton Town Police, grew up with him, best friends whole life, and he kind of put the bug in my ear to, maybe take another look back at police. So I followed that advice. I took the test and was fortunate enough on the first go around to get hired by New London. Well, worked on the street in patrol for New London for a year, and the SRO that was before me was getting promoted. Well, I had expressed interest in becoming an SRO, especially with my education background. I figured it would be a good transition and a good way to use that background is to work with the students in schools. So I put in for that position and was fortunate enough to get that. So I've been there now 2 years. I'll be starting my third year in the school, primarily at the high school, but I do go to the middle school and the elementary schools in the city as well to help out as needed. The approach that I take to it, sure, I could be like a lot of people and just talk at the kids. If they mess up, do something wrong, I could just talk at to them, lecture them. But I try not to do that. I try and talk with them. If they have an issue, I let them vent to me, if that's what they need to do. If they're swearing at me because they're venting, that's fine, vent. Because I'm not going to try and step over you and say, stop swearing, stop doing this, stop doing that, okay? Once they calm down, then we have that dialogue, and then we have that good conversation. And usually whatever issue they had brought to me is resolved then, or we're able to put them in the right direction to get it resolved. Now, I help out in class in the criminal justice class that we have at the high school, and I try and give them a perspective, real life perspective, from someone who actually does the job versus a teacher who really doesn't have any experience as far as law enforcement goes, but they're qualified to teach a class in it. So I give them that real life experience, and the response that I get back from them is a valued response. They enjoy hearing what I have to say, and a lot of times they ask some really good questions. Some of the times I really don't have an answer right away for them. It's something that I got to dig around for. And it's built relationships between me and students. Some of them will come to me with issues that they have. Some of them will wait a whole weekend to report something. They don't want to call the police. They'd rather wait until they get to school and then report it. So that right there is powerful. just shows you the respect that they have for an individual. And then when we have the negative stuff here in the media, they will ask me about that. So at that point, you know, I don't tell them what's right, what's wrong. I tell them, go ahead, do some more research on it. See what else you can find. See if you can find another side to the story. And then we have another dialogue about it. So try and not let them jump to conclusions too quickly. So far it's paid off well. You know, they see me on the street, driving by, they'll wave, shout out at me. I'll stop, talk with them, and they'll have that conversation with me. So just try and continue to build those relationships with these students. And I know, yeah, it's been 2 years, but we're not quite there yet with all those relationships. Some of the kids are very hesitant because they've had that negative interaction with police. Now, it may not have been with me, it may have been with somebody else, it may not have been here in Connecticut. But that's the perception that they have. So it's tough. I got to try and break down those walls and show them that, you know, what this is all about, that we're not all the same. You can't put us all in one box, and that, you know, there are quite a few good ones out there. So.
Thank you. Can you hear me? My name is Dave Richardson, as Mr. Booker said. I'm a retired teacher, New London School District, and one of the things that really got my attention when I was listening to you is how you lend an ear to those kids. And I found as a teacher that is so important, and it goes a long way as far as developing a rapport. A lot of these kids, they just want to be heard because they feel so marginalized as far as what they have to say or what ideas they have in their heads. And I think that is just so critical and very admirable of you to take the time to listen to them. I've always had a respect for anybody in uniform, whether it's a firefighter, a pilot, a bus driver, security guard, military personnel, anyone in uniform. And, you know, it's just something as a little kid, I've always had that respect. If I was to pinpoint where did I get my respect for police officers, I would have to say it's from my father. His thing was to always respect authority, always carry yourself in such a way that you will be respected by authority as well. I went into the military right after high school, did 4 years in the Marine Corps, and then when I got out, I went into the National Guard. So I did my 20 years serving this country. So I understand what it's like to be capsulized, you know, as a teacher, as a veteran, and so on and so forth. And it always bothers me when I see those negatives that are real, yes. But if we're not careful, we'll have a tendency to generalize everyone into that box, as Mr. Booker illustrated. It's very distressing when I see it on the media, and I hold fast to this, that they represent a minority within the forces across this great country. I honestly believe in the depths of my heart that most police officers, they do it because they have a passion for serving. And I believe that. And I thank you and all police officers that do what they do. I think about those officers, men and women, who, when they put on their uniforms and their gear and they leave their homes, and those who have families. See, when I go to work, I go to work and do my thing, and then I'm thinking, okay, what's for dinner tonight? Okay, do I go to the gym tonight? Maybe we'll go out to eat or whatever, right? But police officers, when they leave their homes, am I going to get home to my family tonight? I'm going to make it back home to them. that's really something. We have a tendency to take that for granted, but I think that is something to really think about when they go on their job. Am I going to make it back home tonight? And I think about that when I see police officers out there doing what they do. And again, I have nothing but thanks for all that you do. A couple of experiences I've had, positive experiences that I can remember, and this is when I was a young man in the military, and I was coming from I think it was a cookout or something, and it's late at night. I'm driving back to the base, and I'm a little drowsy, and the car's doing this a little bit, and then all of a sudden I hear whoop, 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 and I see the lights, and I'm like, oh, man. So I stop, and I hear this voice come across the bullhorn from his car, pull up beyond the bridge, and I'm like, oh, this is bad, you know? So I pull up, and he gets out, and he comes up to me, can I see your driver's license and insurance, all that stuff? And then he asked me something that I didn't expect. He said, are you okay, sir? I was like, whoa, I thought he was going to hammer me. I said, yeah, I'm just feeling a little tired. He said, did you have anything to drink? I said, you know what, I had a couple beers or whatever. And so he got me to get out, do the little stuff with the, walk here and say the alphabet upside down and all that stuff. And I passed. But what I got from that experience is that he was genuinely concerned. He wasn't hassling me. He was very, okay, so I got back in the car and he said, just be careful, watch yourself. If you feel tired, just pull over. And so I pull out, and I think I missed the exit or something. And I slammed on the brakes because I was supposed to go this way. So he comes up to me, and I'm like, oh, no, this is it. And he goes, sir, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I just missed my exit to get on the on-ramp. I'm a little disoriented. And he says, follow me. And he takes me onto the highway, and I was good. And as simple as that sounds, I never forgot that. Because he could have really given me a hard time. And the second experience I had was 3 years ago. I had a fire in my house, and my wife woke us all up. Yeah, this fire, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm making sure everyone is out of the house, my wife, my daughters, my grandson, and I'm the last one. And I see the light come up the stairs, and there's smoke everywhere. But I didn't see anyone. And I hear, sir, you need to get out of the house. He stayed behind, that police officer stayed behind to make sure I got out of the house. Now, he didn't come upstairs to come look for me. It's smart, because the whole place was filled with smoke. I understood that. But he made sure I got out of the house before he got out. And again, I never forgot that. Had us all in his squad car because it was cold and things like that. So that being said, personally from me, from my heart, I just want to say thank you to you and your colleagues for what you do.
This is what it's all about, though, this kind of dialogue. And I just want to thank you both, seriously, because I wish more people were having these conversations. The next individual I'm going to bring up is Tirico Satterfield, who's also a community member. He's very invested in Norwich, New London, Groton. He's just all over and throughout Eastern Connecticut, and he's doing extraordinary work. And it's a pleasure to have him here as well. And he has an organization called Real Life Empire. And Real Life Empire is about uplifting young people and empowering them to be their best. So let's give a round of applause for Tirico Satterfield. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. I'm not going to say your last name, but I'll try, okay? But this extraordinary officer from Groton Police Department is a good friend of mine on many levels, and see him all the time at Fitch High School. He does great work with the youth. He's an SRO, and he's highly invested in a lot of the young people. And Officer Scott Bousquet. Good. And if you were wrong, I wouldn't tell you anything. I know. He's very invested, just like Officer Benway. And as you can see, their friendship as well. And, you know, as my mom always said, you know, positive people, surround yourself around positive individuals. And then what I even learned as I'm improving and growing up in my career, surround yourself around positive people who encourage you as well. And that's what I see with these wonderful officers. So please give a round of applause for Officer Scott Bousquet. Bousquet.
First, I'd like to thank Mr. Booker for having me tonight. I appreciate it. I'm well honored. Thank you, everyone, for showing up, hearing what we have to say. It's kind of funny, Officer Benway, I was listening to him talk, and our paths are kind of similar in the way that how we became police officers. I originally wanted to be a teacher. So I guess now you could say I'm killing two birds with one stone. Growing up, I always found myself wanting to be with the young kids, whether it was after-school programs, substitute teaching, coaching. Wherever I found myself, I always wanted to be with the youth. So I finished with my degree at Eastern. I wanted to be a teacher, obviously, like I said before. State of Connecticut kind of made you jump through hoops. So at the time that I was trying to be a teacher, it just wasn't happening for me. So, like Officer Benway said, I had a couple buddies that were Waterford cops, and they told me, well, why don't you take the test? And I kind of knew, obviously, a police officer is helping people. And I realized that whether it was with grown-up people or whether it was with the youth, I wanted to help. So, like Officer Benway said, I ended up taking a test, and it was a lengthy process. It took me about a year and a half to finally, Groton Town finally hired me, and the academy and all that, and on the street and working with people. And I guess you could say that the approach that I take with the young people at the high school is the same approach that I took on the street. Is I guess everyone has a story. I looked at everyone as a book. So everyone has a story. Not everyone's story is positive. Some might have negative stories. So my approach was to see people, don't judge people, because you never know what they're going through. So at the time, like Officer Benway said, the SRO position opened up. And like I had said initially, that I wanted to be with young people. I wanted to help them and to teach them and to guide them. So it opened up, and I've been a police officer now for 11 years, 5 of which, I think this year will be the 6th year I'll be the SRO. So my approach is, like I said before, all my students have a story. Some good, some bad. I don't try to, like Officer Benway says, some of them sometimes just want to vent. They just want someone to talk to. Home life might not be that good. There's days that I'm a psychologist, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm an uncle, I'm an aunt. You know, you're a myriad of things. And like Officer Benway had said, that sometimes they just want to vent. It's okay if they're swearing. It's okay if they're using not so nice words. They just need someone to talk to. And I want to be that listening ear for them. I'm big on building rapport. I'm big on respect. Like I tell the young kids, you respect me, I respect you. And I think that goes a big way with, especially the kids that I work with here at Fitch. Respect is big. So I'm not so fast to jump on them if borderline, if I could arrest them or not. I kind of look at it as they kind of get chances with me. I guess it's a way of building rapport with them. Because in essence, if they do something wrong, I have a discretion, we say. So I might be more apt to maybe work with them with something, or mentor them, or do something else in the process of them if they're borderline breaking that law. Like Mr. Booker said, the box thing. I try to get the kids to look outside the box. My first year at Fitch, actually being the SRO, was a little tough because, like Officer Benway had said, there's this image of a police officer, or they might have had a bad experience with a police officer, so I'm kind of that box to them. Well, I had a bad experience with a police officer, so I don't like you because you're a police officer. You wear that badge. I try to tell them I try not to. This badge doesn't define me. It's my job. I have to do it. I have to uphold the law. I took an oath. But at the same time, underneath this badge and underneath all this stuff, I'm a person. I put my pants the same way they do on in the morning. So, like I said before, the approach that I take is building rapport. They all have stories. And whether their story is good or bad, I try to be that light of hope in their story. And I don't want them to look at me as just a police officer. I mentor Officer Benway. I also teach. We have a freshman academic seminar class at Fitch, and I'll go into the classes and I'll talk to the kids about what they shouldn't be doing. You know, you get the questions on, if I'm with my boys and we're riding down the street and we're doing this, I try to tell them what they should and what they shouldn't do. I go to all the football games, I go to away games, most of the home games I work. It's about being there for them. It's huge because they know that this is just not a 7 to 3 job for me. It's after school also. And then, like Officer Benway says, like even now, like I'm on patrol for the summer. So if I'm driving around through PQ and I see the kids, they'll come running over to the car. Hey, Officer B, what's going on? How's your summer's going? So it's a rapport thing, and they know if you're invested or not. They know that, like I had said before, they know that if you're just there for 7 to 3 and then you're just there to get your paycheck and to go home, they know. And I want to be more for them as far as just not a 7 to 3, whether I'm mentoring them, whether I'm helping them with their homework, whatever they need, I just want them to know that I'm there for them.
My name is Tirico Satterfield. Thank you so much, Kevin Booker, for having me here today. I'm a community member over in Norwich, but I also, like Kevin said, I work in Groton. I do programs in New London, and I've had many interactions with the police officers from working in the public school system. I did work at East Lyme High School for 2 years. After working at East Lyme High School, I worked over in Norwich Public Schools for 9 years and worked very closely with the police officers in doing lockdowns and things of that sort within my school. And now, where I am now in the work that I do, so my background, I've always worked with young people, just like these guys. I played sports, but came and grew up in a very dysfunctional household. And so I had a lot of difficulty growing up. And so when I saw a lot of kids, I saw myself. And that really pushed me. I thank you so much. It's lovely hearing an officer say that when they look at people, that they look beyond what you see in surface. Because what I like to say, very similar to what you said and what you shared tonight, is that every individual has a treasure on the inside of them. You may not see the treasure that's buried on the inside of them, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And if we just be willing to, no different than what you have to do to get to the treasure that's buried in the bottom of an ocean, mean that you may have to dive deep. You may have to go deep. You may have to move some dirt out of the way. There may be some debris that's covered over what's inside, that treasure that's there, but the treasure's there. And if you just be willing, like you said, to build that rapport, build that relationship, allow them to vent, and all that venting is the debris coming out. It's what they've been, what's been placed on them that they didn't ask for. Some things are mistakes that they've made, just like some of us. Mistakes that you've made, and now you have to confront those things. Thank you guys so much for being a place, a safe place, for them to be able to come and clean that debris out. And what happens is, once you're able to clean the debris, the treasure comes out. They see the treasure that's in them, and once you identify that treasure, then you can start asking questions. What can I do with this? And now I have a trusted relationship. I believe in you, and I know you believe in me. And now I know I can be protected. I can be supported. I can be exactly what they do every day. I can be served by you. And so thank you guys so much. Same here. From the bottom of my heart, man, My relationship with the police officers goes even for me as a child. My great uncle was a former Tuskegee, an original Tuskegee Airman. And so I've always had a level of respect for men in uniform based on simply it started there. Because he used to share his stories with me and what it was like to serve and what it was like to not be utilized as an airman. That led to some of my relatives. I had a cousin that was a police officer. And so that image was around me all of my life. So I used to help my cousin get dressed to go in. He'd be like, yo, go down there and get my belt. And I'm like, I'm not carrying that heavy thing. So, but, it looks like you're just helping. But what it was really doing for me, it was cultivating a relationship and helping me see an officer as a different way. Like he said, up under the uniform, that was my cousin. With the uniform on, I had to stop at the stop sign too, even though that's my cousin in the car. Or I had to stop at the red light. He didn't give me any passes. He would tell us in the neighborhood, if you go through that stop sign, I'm going to stop you, and we're going to have a conversation. He said, I might not get you the first time, but we're going to talk about that. But I appreciate that because, again, it taught me that underneath that uniform, he wore his uniform and he worked a certain time frame, but he was a person. And we were able to go and talk and have dialogue with him. I remember he used to take me on ride-alongs. He would take me on a ride-along and show me what his day looked like. I also had a special opportunity last year over in Norwich when at the height of this. I'm very good friends with the Norwich Police Department as well, and they called me in and asked me to come do a presentation with them. And so I was able to put the belt on in this presentation. And a person was able to come and attack me. And they said, we want you to see what it feels like for us when a person is coming at you and you got to get this gun out of your holster. And I was like, oh, that's no problem, easy. And they said, okay, we're going to say go. The person's going to come across the room, and it's on you. You got to make your move. They showed me what to do. I said, all right, I got it. And he was like, all right, go. And I was like, this thing is stuck. No, yeah, this is stuck. And they said, what happened? What are you going to do? You were hit. And I was like, let's do this again. So I told him, let's do it again. Did it again. And the next time, I had the gun out. But by the time I had it out, the guy was already on me. And it was the first time for me that I had a real experience of what it was like to be a police officer, having to defend yourself against somebody that's coming to harm you. Not somebody that's coming to talk to you, but somebody that's coming to harm you. And like you said earlier, thinking about you guys wanting to go home. And I put myself in that position that if I was that officer and I wanted to go home to see my family, what would my response be to that individual that I know is coming to hurt me? And I left that day with the mentality and the mindset because it shifted my viewpoint. Because it's easy to say what you'll do when you're not in the situation. And it's a whole totally different ball game when you're in the situation and you have to make a decision under distress. And so I say thank you because, one, you guys as officers, and for the length of time that you've been an officer, it obviously proves that you have a level head because you're able to make some decisions under distress, and those decisions obviously have been good decisions. So thank you guys so much for that. But I'm honored to be in the community and be able to work. And I also want to say this, man. All my interactions with police have not been great. I've had some challenging situations with officers, but I also live by this, that, you know, everybody deserves a fresh start. Every day I get a fresh start. Every day the hope that I have with people, with young people, it has to be renewed on a regular basis. And so I give that same level of relationship. If that's who I am to young people, then that's who I have to be with everybody. Not just, I can't pick and choose. That hope that I have in young people, I have that in individuals and people that I come in contact with. A situation happened recently where an individual was killed by a police officer. And I remember seeing it and being at work and getting upset at work and like, oh my gosh, another situation. And I stopped. I took a breath, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to go that direction. I'm going to take some responsibility myself. The next time I see a police officer out trying to deal with a situation, especially if it's a young person, I'm going to try to help. Instead of me complaining about what they're doing, how about I try to pitch in and help? And that same night, I left work, headed back to Norwich. The fair was going on in Norwich. And what do you know? I'm driving through downtown Norwich, and I see police officers' lights on, and I see some young guys over there with the police officers. And I was like, you know what? I was on my way home. I was tired. I was like, you know what? I'm pulling over. Pulled my truck over. I walked over, talked to the officers, and said, hey, guys, everything okay? They said, yes. I said, listen, I just want an opportunity to talk to the young man. If you give me an opportunity just for a few seconds to speak with this young man, I said, I'm not trying to interfere with what you guys are doing, but I want to be a part of the community and help out and support the work that you guys are doing. And they were like, one of the officers that knew me, they was like, oh, that's sad. Yeah, let him go talk to him. But they let me go over. They left me alone with the kid, talked to the kid, and then at the end, the officer came back over. It just so happened that the officer that came over was the officer that I had a bad experience with. And that officer came over there and said to me, man, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He was like, I didn't know. I didn't know. That's all he could say. But I think about that because I was willing to give, serve, not complain, but serve and help out, that it was able to confront this officer that mishandled me, and then he had to check his heart. But that's the power of hope and believing in relationships and what can happen if we give these officers some credit and support the ones that are out here doing the job well. So thank you guys so much. Kevin Booker, thank you so much for having me. And anytime you guys have an opportunity to celebrate people in the uniform, please, even if it's just a thank you, just tell them thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Now, you know, I just want to say thank you very much to all four of you. Extraordinary. But now we got to get a little deeper with some of these questions here, okay? Because as we know, and as some of my colleagues have shared with me, we have an epidemic. We really do. And the four of you are positive individuals who are creating change in the community. But one of the questions that came to my mind was trust. And I've heard that resonate throughout the discussions that you were having. And trust is a major issue within communities that have been historically disenfranchised. And when I think about it, how do you think we can work on improving the relationships, especially in Eastern Connecticut, when we have communities that have been historically disenfranchised, and a lot of times those communities are segregated from the white communities as well, right? And what do you think we can do within Eastern Connecticut, within our towns and our communities, to improve those relationships? Because the history shows that there's been a lot of distrust with the police. And yes, you four are extraordinary individuals, and that's why I'm coming to you, asking you, what do you think we can do? I mean, you're in the streets. You're all in the streets at different levels. What do you think is needed to really slowly work on this epidemic so that this crisis doesn't begin to knock on our doors? I mean, it's already there in some aspects, as we know. I'm not going to get into all that. I'll leave that for another day. But it's there. It's already knocking a little bit. What do you think we can begin to do within our community?
I think the first approach would be things like this, venues like this, actually getting out there and talking to the people. Like right now I'm on patrol, and whether I'm in downtown Mystic on patrol or I'm in Pequannock Bridge, I'm the same person. I'll drive down the nicest neighborhoods and I'm wave and say hello to the people. It's the same approach I take down at Pequannock Bridge. I'll wave and say hello to the people. Right. And you know, some guys you see, they're driving, they're driving on their patrol or they're doing their areas and their windows are up and they're like, there's a disconnect there. The approach I like to take is I'm driving down the street, I'm waving to people, hello, hey, how you doing, sir? So like I said before, it's venues like this and actually getting out there and talking to people. We have a CPO program where officers need to know their communities. They need to know where the situations, where there's problems in their areas. They need to know the people that they're dealing with. Just a matter of getting out there and speaking with people. I mean, like I had said before, I don't define myself by the badge. This is my job, but at the same time, I'm just like one of you guys. So it's a matter of getting out there and talking to people and asking what the problems are and how can I help or how can I make this area better or just getting out there and talking to them and showing them that I do care. I'm just not driving around and collecting my paycheck from 8 to 4. So.
Well, I think in New London, and I know other parts of the state have done it as well, but shortly after Parkland, we started doing this Every School, Every Day initiative. So it kind of gets us involved with the youth right from, kindergarten and them seeing us and having those interactions with us. So it's basically officer goes in to the school that's on their beat, spend 15, 20 minutes there, talking with the staff, walking in classes, talking with the kids. And then the kids take that and they go home, tell their parents, hey, we had an officer stop in today and talk to us. So they bring that positive experience home to the parents. Some of the students, their parents, they don't like police, but they hear that, okay, there's a positive interaction there. So maybe it's not as bad as I might think it is. The other thing that I like to do personally is if it's a slow day and I have a call that really isn't pressing time, I'll sit there and I'll talk with the person. It may take me a half hour to do a call that should probably maybe take 5-10 minutes. Okay, but I talk to that person, see where they're coming from, just kind of be that ear for them, give them some kind of understanding as far as how things work, and just let them, put that frustration that they have on whatever happened, they can, put it on me. It's part of my job. Kind of reminds me of one call that I had with this woman right around Christmas time. Someone stole, most of the gifts that she had for their kids. They stole them, got rid of them. I got sent to that call, and we were able to figure out who it was, and we were able to arrest them, have them go through the court process. Now every time I see this woman, she always brings that up. She's always thanking me for it. That's really the only interaction that I had with her other than seeing her, thanking me for what I did for her. But like I said, I took the time to just listen to what she had to say, maybe even took a few extra minutes than what I really needed to do. So things like that.
Something that really resonated with me when I was listening to you is to take action instead of just complaining. I think that's so critical. We have a tendency to put everything on the police. I know I'm guilty of that at times. The police, they're the ones that's supposed to, but in all actuality, they're as effective as we are helpful, those of us that are out in the community. So I think from the community side of it, parents, community activists, adults in general, what we have to remember is that the kids take their cues from us. Mm-hmm. So if we're always talking down the police and so on and so forth, that's going to resonate with them, and they're going to embody that. So I think, burning the candle at both ends from the end of in the home, I think it's so critical for us to convey to our kids that respect and to build that trust, to get all of the, I think I heard you say this, get all the facts. Don't, it's very easy to do that, as we say, Monday morning quarterbacking, I remember when I was in the military, in the Marines, I did a little bit of boxing, and boxing has always been my favorite sport. And it's very easy to sit there and say, well, throw the left hook, throw the right, the uppercut, you know. And, well, why doesn't he do this? Come on, man. But when you step into that ring,
Right.
it's a whole different story. And that's the way we need to have that perspective with police officers as well. When they're out there, it's a whole different story when they're, have to deal with stuff. So we need to really, teach our kids, okay, I don't think a police officer puts on the uniform with the intentions, man, I'm just going to mess with somebody today. And I don't believe that. Are they out there? Yeah.
Absolutely.
But again, I honestly believe that they're a minority.
Right.
I believe that they honestly and truly want to serve from their hearts, and we need to translate that to our youngsters.
I think for me, as you guys, all three of you were talking, the word that continued to go through my head was peace. I think peace is a misunderstood word, that a lot of people think that peace is just quiet and peaceful protest. But the word peace, if you really dive into it, it's actually negotiation and being willing to talk, have conversation in order to get to peaceful resolve in a relationship. And this is any relationship. It's not just, we're talking about humans, okay?
That's right.
These are human beings behind the uniform. So if I have a problem with him when he's not in uniform, then the only way we're going to work it out is by talking through it. If I have a problem with him when he's in uniform, the only way we're going to work it out is talking through it. So when I say, I think there's a misunderstanding of the term peace, because peace doesn't always mean that you're going to get right to the solution, but it does mean that we have to continue having conversation and dialogue, like you said, what we're doing now. We're marching towards peace in these relationships by having this dialogue from different points of views, okay? And the more we have those dialogues, the deeper the relationships are going to grow, the more trust is going to be built there within the relationships. The more openness and receptivity will be there with individuals who's had issues. I've had that with parents in the school system that had bad interactions with the school system. Well, the school system's not police officers, but the parents don't want to come in there. I'm serious. They don't want to come. But why? Because they had a bad interaction in the school. But when you're able to talk about it, I know that was bad for you, and I know what you went through when you went to school. But I need you to give it a chance again, like you said, for your kid. I need you to be willing to give them a chance again for your child who's there now. They need you there. And being able to have that conversation and that dialogue usually will escort people towards peace and allow you to foster a better relationship with the opposer, if you would.
Tirico, you mentioned a couple key phrases. You said bad interaction, right, and peace. And when I think about who you are as an individual, you had a really bad interaction when you almost lost your life by a police officer. And you're sitting here now and you thanked, this extraordinary police officer right here for what he's doing. How did you get to that point in your life where you almost lost your life in East Lyme because of mistaken identity, and to the point where you still appreciate and respect police officers? Can you please share that with us?
Yeah, just a little background in the story is when I worked at East Lyme High School, I was the only African-American male that worked there at the school. And I was at work late one night, 6 o'clock at night. Custodian came over, cleaned the facility. I talked with him, had conversation, small talk with him. He left, cleaned the building, he left. Probably about 30 minutes after he left, I saw police lights outside. Of course, I'm at work, so I didn't think anything about it. Continued to work, but I saw the lights increase, and it was like more and more lights. And I'm like, whoa, maybe I should go outside and make sure I'm okay in here. So I walked outside, and as soon as I stepped foot outside, there was a police officer, female police officer. She jumped out of her car, pulled her gun, and put it up and said, "You better get your hands up." And I was like, who? Me? And I'm looking around. I was like, "You're talking to me?" And she was like, "You better not move, and you better get your hands up." And before I know it, she says, I got him. And I said, "You got him? Him? Me?" And sure enough, from around the sides of the building, 4 officers came from this way and 4 came from this way. She walked up on me with her pistol pulled and literally kept coming towards me. They came towards me, and I had my badge on that night. Thank God I had my badge on. But because I had my badge on, they were like, one of the officers said, "He works here." And I said, "He works here?" I said, "So what did you think I was here to do?" And they said, "We got a call that there was somebody in the building robbing the building." And I said, "So 30 minutes later, somebody here robbing the building is still here, taking computers out on their back? What's going on?" But so fast forward that story. I had an opportunity there. People at the school approached me. People in the city approached me they wanted to call Al Sharpton. They wanted me to do a story. They wanted me to push. And I did. I had an opportunity where if I wanted to capitalize on the opportunity, I could have gone in that direction, but I chose not to. Why? Because of that word that I used earlier, hope. Hope. I wanted to challenge the people that were working with me, who saw and knew what happened. I wanted to challenge them in what they knew had happened. And when I talk about dialogue and having a peaceful dialogue, in that moment, and I didn't know how it affected me. I was getting ready to have my little son, my first son at that time. And I didn't know how it affected me until the lady that pulled the gun on me, she had to come to the school to arrest a student. And she walked through the door, and I started crying. And one of my colleagues said, "Tirico, leave. Go for a walk. Go for a walk." And she saw it, and she walked with me, and she was like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The chief of police, I coached his son in football. So he came over to the school, wrote up a letter, came and talked to me, dealt with the individual at the station. I allowed them to go through their process. I didn't like what happened to me. It didn't feel good. It made me nervous when I got pulled over from now on with police officers. But I believe in one, love, which I'm a Christian, and so God tells me to love everybody. So I stand on that. I walk with that love no matter where. He tells me to love my enemies. So I don't get off of that box. I stay there no matter what. Whether it's convenient or inconvenient, love to me, it builds relationship. And so you ask me, how did I get to where I am now? I don't want to be angry. Life is choice driven. I believe it. I want to build relationships. I want to help. I want to be a support. These guys are out here paying a price, right? They take bullets sometimes that I'll never take. And so I want to come alongside them and them to know, listen, I'm out here with you. I'm in these streets with you. Anything I can do to help. With the hopes that every seed that I plant will come back as a harvest for me when I'm in need. And it has every time.
And just to piggyback off what you're saying with hope, and I'm thinking about these 2 extraordinary officers that are sitting beside you. How do you two stay positive when you see negative like images on media, social media outlets? How do you stay positive and continue to do your job and influence people in your community in a positive light? And what are you doing to help other fellow officers to continue to have that kind of energy, that positive energy within your own community, within your own department? Or do you get backlash? Do you receive any sort of backlash because of the type of person, police officer that you are?
I guess just to piggyback off of Mr. Satterfield, I guess the word is hope. I mean, I hope that things are changed, and I'm hoping to be part of that change. I mean, no matter what I can do. As far as with fellow officers, I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
Knowing the backlash that we're receiving, and officers being killed and ambushed, and at the same time, I say to myself, well, I want to go home to my family at the end of the night. But I guess just hope, and when guys are talking about it, whether they're in roll call or whatever, and whatever they're discussing, the only thing I can do is continue to be me, and handle situations the way I handle things.
That's right.
Like we had said before, everyone's different. There's bad apples in every profession.
Yeah.
So I just continue to do me and handle things the way that I handle things. I try not to waver too much, because so far for the last 11 years, it's worked for me. So I'm going to continue to follow that path. And at the same time, like we had said before, venues like this and open communication and such things that are eventually, hopefully, things will get better with things like that. So.
That's right. Thank you.
I guess, everybody's got opinions about everybody else, right? I try not let those opinions sway me in how I do my job. Obviously, depending on if it's an officer safety kind of thing, you take all that into consideration when you're dealing with this person. But nonetheless, people have opinions, negative and positive. With my position with dealing with the youth, and if a name pops up in roll call, I try and give as much background as I can on that individual, whether it's good or bad. If they're dealing with somebody and I hear it on the radio and it's somebody that I've got a good relationship with, I'll go to that call. I'll help out with that call. I think it adds a bit of a comfort to the juvenile that's there, that's in the midst of this whole thing. And then with the negative that's happening around the country, you kind of look at it and, you just say to yourself, okay, I'm not that type of officer. And you try and convey that message to those people that you're dealing with, whether it's just flat out telling them that you're not that type of person or with your actions. So,
Thank you. I would like to open this up to the audience. If you have any questions or a comment, please.
I'm with City Serve ECT, which is a network of churches and ministries in New London and Windham counties. And our chairman is Pastor Chuck Tyree at Norwich Alliance Church. And he was one of the first people in the area to kind of set up an arrangement in Norwich where there were 4 pastors who arranged their schedules so that one of them would always be available 24/7 to be on call for police to call in a trauma situation and see if the person who was in dire straits, would want to talk to a pastor. And that worked so well in Norwich that Waterford said, gee, we'd like to do that here. So they lined up 4 more pastors to serve in Norwich. And I believe they ran a training on how to do this for pastors to work with the criminal justice people in January. And I think that Stonington is adopting it. And I think maybe one of the Groton forces may be asking for this kind of help as well. And so I think that it's wonderful tonight. We've focused on the police relationships with youth, which is so critical. But in a broader context, here's another way for police to relate to leaders in the community who can help out, and they can help you and you can help them.
That's right. Thank you.
Betty Ann?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that Groton just recently reintroduced community police officers, and that the officer has office hours here at the library on Tuesday mornings and Thursday afternoons, and we have already personally at the library seen great benefits from the program, and I think as it continues, we're going to see more and more as the community gets to know him as a person and feel comfortable with him. We're seeing it with our teens. It has a great benefit. When he has some free time, he'll play video games with them, and they see him as a person now who has similar interests and somebody that they can talk to. And so we're really big on the program and hope it continues.
My name is J.D. Nichols, and I'm very blessed to live in the city of Groton. And I say that because up to 2 years ago, I was very paranoid for my situations, as in being dressed as I am today. And 2 years ago, I met Chief Spellman, and anyone that have met him knows that he is a man of highly intelligence, full of compassion, and has the pulse of the people. But my concern is that, quite honestly, I didn't hear anything today that had a solution. Dialogue is nice, but how long can we talk about something? How long can we open the newspaper and read or watch any channel from CNN to Fox and see what's happening? Talk is nice, but when does the action come in? When is enough enough? And I understand that Mr. Booker's idea today, and I commend the two officers that is here. It's nice because it's not the whole department. It's just a few. But as you know, in a car, if you take a half a teaspoon of sugar and put it in the engine, you know what happens. It breaks down, it fails. So can anyone here today give me something that I could take to tell the youth and people of my generation and older and wherever age what is going to be happening or what is in place already for us to feel a little safer or for us to feel a little more secure that something is being worked on, that something is being done and it will be dealt with?
It's a very good question. I think one thing that we might need is that I see that you're here, but at the same time, we need everyone here to make it work.
That's right.
With just us here, it's just it's the beginning of it. We're at the bottom. We need to work to the top. So I commend you for being here, but at the same time, for it to work as a community, as a society, and as a nation, we need more people here. We need more involvement. That would be one thing I would offer.
To go back to what the gentleman from the city of Groton said, it is an important first step. It may not be the be-all and end-all, but it's things like this that get the ball rolling. And gentlemen like this, and like Mr. Booker, who also get the ball rolling. And it's up to all of us who are listening and concerned that we all take it out of here to our people in our classrooms, in our neighborhoods. And we have to do it. You know, we can't sit around and wait for someone else to do it. It's up to us. So we all have to take part in this. And again, thank you all for being here and doing this. It's wonderful.
Any other questions? Tirico?
I just wanted to follow up on the response to Jacob about action. I think we minimize the power of conversation. We still today talk about Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. And the reason that we talk about the speech is because before it was actively seen, it was a speech given. And because he was able to put words into the atmosphere, put it out there, we had something to strive for. We had something to point towards. We had a vision of something that we can see. So again, when I keep talking about the word peace, you say what are the action steps? I see action steps happen when you hear terms like community policing. When I see officers riding around on the bicycles in the communities in Norwich. When I see officers, when they have an opportunity to arrest and they don't. When I see officers do things like this, they're here. I don't think we can minimize those things because everything's built on, I tell people, big doors swing on small hinges. You can look at a door and think that that door is just standing. It's massive in size, but there are some small, if you break it down to its finest atomic structure, it's small. But all those small things brought together make a big impact, and it creates a door that people can walk through. So it's important for us to continue to build on these small things, even in relationship. That's the other thing that crossed my mind, that relationship. Relationship is fostered by conversations. And you say something of interest, and I can connect to it. And now I want to talk more to you about that. Even you just saying something tonight. So that says, man, here's somebody I need to talk to because they want to activate something. Let me see what his ideas are about activating. What does he have to bring to the table? Again, that's peace, because we're going to cultivate that thing, and in that process, incubation starts to happen that basically turns into active steps, practical steps that we can take to foster healthier communities, healthier dialogue, healthier interactions, and I think it continues to grow and grow. But anybody that is married, anybody that's been in a relationship, you know it takes work. Hard work. Relationship and time. There is no, if it's out there, you send it to me, please. If there's a Marriage for Dummies book or a Perfect Marriage for Dummies book, I need it, all right? I need that book. But my point is that every relationship, we try to put all these different things on top of it. Well, they police officers. Where we this, we're that. How about we go back to being people and having a relationship? And I'm from Alabama. I recognize the problem. I tell people that I feel like I got a reason I can have this conversation. Because in Alabama, the KKK still march with sheets on. Okay? So I tell people I feel like I can say this with a level of depth and understanding of what racism really, what it really is like to grow up in Alabama. But I look at the men sitting beside me, and I see what I hear the words that they've shared tonight. And I say, oh man, they're doing some great things. That's what I said to myself. They're doing some great things in the community. And I allow that relationship. I want to groom that relationship now. And so I think if we start there, what are the opportunities that we're giving to groom relationships with people? Or are we looking just to fight each other? Because it's something totally different if you're showing up at a conversation just to fight versus you're showing up with understanding. And let's understand each other. And that has to be done on both parts, not just citizens, the civilians, but on the officers' end. Because sometimes I approach officers and I say to officers, hey man, you can smile. It's all good. You can smile. It's cool. You can chill. I'm good. But sometimes you need to have that dialogue with them to tell them, hey man, we good. Because they're nervous too. Just like I'm nervous. When I'm pulled over late at night, I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. You come to the car, what's up, man? I try to start it off with it. What's up, man? How you doing? You all right? What I do? And they might be serious back with me. But in that moment, yeah, I shouldn't have to have that thought, man, am I going to go home? Same thing. I shouldn't have to have that thought, am I going to go home? But in the moment, I do not personalize it, because if I personalize it and the other stuff comes out of me, then I'm going to end up with a bad result. And again, the objective for me in the moment is to go home. Not for me to show how macho I am, to go home. My wife is sitting beside me, for us to go home. My children are in the back, for us to go home. I'm not going to carry what's happened to everybody else in that car with me in that moment, because if I carry, let's be honest, if I carry that with me in that moment, then I'm not going to respond properly. I'm not, with understanding, because I don't understand that. So we have to be willing to, again, allow these small things to build bridges, man. They're building bridges. I know it don't seem like it, but we have to continue laying these little small pieces down and building those bridges, and eventually we'll cross over to the other side.
Thank you. So for closing here, can you, each one of you, all of you, you're extraordinary positive individuals here. Can you say a statement or something that you would like to pass on to the viewers out here and the listeners out here who are going to be watching this extraordinary event? Something you would like to leave them with? Because someone's probably watching this and they're probably saying to themselves, this is great, but maybe just some hope and some positive words for them. I'll start with you, Dave.
The thing I often go back to when I'm feeling a little out of balance, depending on situation, is I choose, because it comes down to choice. Mm-hmm. I choose not to look at it as civilian, police, black, white, Latino, Asian, male, female, Republican, Democrat. I choose to look at things in terms of the human context. It's a human condition. Let's deal with humanity. When we see someone through the lens of our eyes, let's see a fellow human being, and that we're all in the same boat of life, and we need to come together. We need to, but he was wrong or she was wrong. Let's cross the lines, let's cross the aisles, and let's come together, and let's work together and work, as he said, and it takes work at coming to that solution.
Thank you.
I think at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all made up of the same stuff. Stop, have a conversation.
That's right.
Doesn't matter what it's about,
That's right.
If you see an officer walking on the street and you're walking by, stop, say hello. Just those small conversations make a big difference, Well, oftentimes we'll ask people if we see them, hey, how you doing? And then quite often people will ask us, we don't know what you're going through at the time. You don't know what we dealt with at the time. So just, just feeling that interaction, that dialogue, that interest that you show in us, the interest that we show in you, goes a long way.
Thank you.
I think the other thing is recognizing the role of media. I think it's very critical to recognize the role of media, and they do things to get ratings. Let's be honest about this. Like, they do things to get ratings and get people talking. I appreciate that they're there, and I appreciate that they put those stories out there that we need to know about, things that I need to know and things that I care about. But I also think that it's wisdom to get the whole story. And again, when you do have those situations where people are wrong, I say transparency is key. Officers that are wrong, they're wrong. Individual civilians that are wrong, they're wrong. So again, dialogue and accepting that. Mm-hmm. I think that if officers who are wrong admit wrong, just like civilians have to admit wrong, then it makes the conversation a little easier. So I just some positivity is let's continue to go and grow, and not think that we all have already overcome when we're still overcoming. We hadn't overcome, we are overcoming, but that's a gradual journey, and so be okay with taking the journey. Stay on the ride. That's what I tell people. Stay on the ride, right? I don't need you to get off. I need you to stay on. Because as long as you're on and then the officers are on, then we can keep talking, we can keep having a conversation, we can keep dialoguing, we can keep activating. So let's just continue, man, because our children need this. My daughter, I'm in an interracial marriage, and my daughter is mixed. And I tell people, as an African-American male, I have an interracial daughter, so what am I going to tell her? What am I going to tell her as an African-American male that officers don't like daddy because of the color of his skin? I don't want to teach her that. I don't. I want to teach her about people, and I want to teach her how to look at people, first of all, like God requires us to look at people, That's my standard. And so I go from there with my daughter. So I really want everybody to, we got to stay open, man. We got to keep talking. That's it. Let's just keep having the dialogue.
Thank you.
I think the big thing is change is a commitment. Yeah. So in order to make things better or to get where we want to be, it's a commitment to want to get there. Right. At the same time, like I like to tell the kids that, you know, I don't see them for, okay, you're African American or you're Hispanic. They're all people. Mm-hmm. We need to get over this color thing. Or I'm 44 years old and I haven't quite fathomed that yet. I mean, we're all people.
So true.
I don't see you as an African American man. I see you as a person. Yeah.
But we get
Simple.
so caught up with all that.
We get so caught up in that. I
know.
To each its own, I guess. And I know it's kind of cliche, but it's going to take time.
It takes a lot of time, right?
Rome wasn't built in a day. I know we've probably all heard that. And in order for us to change things, it takes the whole community, not just a couple. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's my piece.
And just to piggyback on what you were saying, like, you know, getting caught up with the whole race aspect and what we see on images on media, what's interesting is that scientifically it's been proven that 99.5% of us are genetically the same, our DNA. What prevents us from getting to know someone is that 0.5%. It's just 0.5%. That's what prevents us from really getting to know someone, the physiology of that person, the physical makeup. But I just want to say to all of you, you four extraordinary individuals, thank you for your hard work. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening. Thank you for your positive energy. And I want to say I love you with all my heart because you are positive individuals. And it is a blessing and an honor to be among all of you. And JD, you know, you're right. We do have a long way to go. Mm-hmm. That's an understatement, even within our own county. That's right. But it's individuals like these extraordinary individuals here that this is what our county and our communities are about. Is moving forward. And it's going to take steps like this. And Betty Ann, I really appreciate you having this function, allowing us to be here in this place and using this space as well to have this dialogue, because this is important. And yes, maybe marketing and stuff we have to work on even more, but this is where it starts. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. I was thinking about a quote by Gandhi. And he said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Mm-hmm. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And I think Officer Lewis, he mentioned that briefly in his letter. Mm-hmm. And he's right, because that's how we create change. Mm-hmm. We create change first within ourselves. Mm-hmm. We have to reflect, because we all have our own baggage that we're dealing with every day, no matter who we are. And then we have to work on our baggage so that we can create change within our own little communities that way, no matter what we're doing for a living. So I just want to say again, thank you very much. I really do appreciate you. I love the positive energy. I love what you're doing in the communities. And let's continue doing this work. Let's continue impacting New London, Groton, and Eastern Connecticut, because that's what we're all about. And I appreciate you, and thanks again for everything. Thank you.